This may be a little bit of a biased opinion, but I think you're listening to the greatest podcast of all time. Welcome to the Absolute Podcast.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Mitchell.
No problem. So I'm just going to start out with this. I've been talking about sleep a little bit for a little while, and I don't think since I finished high school, I have had a regular sleep schedule, like, ever since high school ended. Like, I really don't think I've gone a week with, like, a regular, like, 8 hours or 7 hours. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to look into the sleep thing, and then I came across you. So I was like, all right, well, I might as well ask you if you want to talk about some sleep stuff.
I sure do. I love talking about sleep. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Okay. So in high school, did you feel like you were getting a regular night's sleep?
Yeah, because I think the routine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was different when, bedtime, wake up time, what was different?
Well, I worked so many jobs,
Okay.
like, throughout this 3-year span.
After high school?
After high school.
Okay.
And every job was different. So some were just like 8 to 4 or something, but some were like shift work. And then some was just like all over the place. Like, you didn't have a set schedule. It was more just like you go in at 6 and then you could be working till 12 at night, or like 5 or a couple hours. Or, yeah, it was all different. So.
But
Yeah.
in high school, it was kind of...
It was just school.
Schoolwork, and then you went to bed,
Yeah.
you slept, and then you got up. So do you mind having an irregular sleep schedule, or does it not bother you?
I think I'm accustomed to it now.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Because one of the things is, what are your sleep goals? Because some people, it really bothers them when they can't sleep all night long. They hate getting tired in the afternoon. They'd love to get back on that schedule. Some people, it doesn't bother them. It doesn't interfere with their life. It doesn't interfere with their family. And so really, there's no problem with their sleep because it's all about what your own goals are.
Right.
But if you wanted to get back into a good sleep schedule, you probably already know the answers.
Probably.
Do you want to know a few tips, though?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the big ones is...
Discipline. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, discipline. No, self-discipline. So one of the things is having a regular sleep schedule, like you've already pointed out that you had before when you were in high school. So going to bed at the same time every night and getting up at the same time every morning, including weekends, as close as you can get. Really hard with somebody young like you.
Yeah.
You've got a busy life. You've got friends. Sometimes you never know where you're going to be sleeping. If you're
Right.
at a party or at a get-together and it's late, you might just stay overnight. So it is difficult when you're younger, but if you're able to get to bed at the same time and get up in the morning at the same time, really helps. How do you get to bed at the same time if you're not tired? Well, the thing that determines when you're going to be going to bed and feeling sleepy is when you got up that morning. So to get back on a regular schedule, say you'd been going to bed late for a while, for a couple of days, you really got to force yourself, and you set that alarm for 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and you get up, you struggle through the day, but you will be tired that night. And after a few days, you'll be back on track.
Okay.
Another thing is caffeine, which you and I both just had a coffee
Yeah.
here.
I didn't have it yet, but
Oh,
yes.
you didn't have it yet? Okay.
forgot
Caffeine
about it.
has a huge effect on our sleep. So drinking coffee or something caffeinated until about noon is okay. I say after noon or 2, you should really lay off the caffeinated drinks. Switch to decaf if you must have a coffee, because caffeine stays in our system for 11 or 12 hours. It's about that long
Really?
before it's metabolized out. So say you went to Tim's and had a coffee, or went to Piccadilly Coffee, even better, and had a coffee at 4 o'clock. It's going to be 3 or 4 in the morning before that's metabolized out of your system.
Wow.
So, and you may notice that you fall asleep just fine after you've had a coffee, but what actually disturbs your sleep is, with caffeine in your system, it's not the falling asleep, it's that it takes very little to wake you up out of that deep sleep. You might not even remember it, but that caffeine makes it so a little, somebody goes down the hall and goes to the washroom might wake you up when, if you didn't have caffeine in your system, you would never wake up. So good to stay away.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. I got loads of those. So
Yeah.
but those are 2 biggies.
Caffeine doesn't affect me though. Like I don't get energized by caffeine. So I don't know. Would that still work probably? Like would my brain still be like aware, I guess?
Yes.
Still awake?
It is. And so you don't feel that caffeine gives you sort of that jolt. Maybe you drink enough of it that you don't really feel like that.
No, I don't drink caffeine ever, but
Oh, you don't?
No, but if I drink this, like I won't get like a boost.
You won't get a buzz or anything. Not a buzz,
anything.
but you won't get that sort of jittery feeling. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, but it would still, unless there's something, different about your metabolism, it would still, if they took a blood test, 10 or 11 hours later, it would just still be in your system. And the effect it has on our brain is that it keeps us more alert and less likely to get into a deep sleep where we would stay there. So I just stay out. I stay away from it after lunch. Before noon is fine. Drink all you can get.
Sure. Why did you want to get into sleep? What is it that like?
Well, that is that's kind of an interesting story. So sometimes people have sort of one or two things that's happened in their life that pushes them into a career. I've been being pushed into sleep since I was a little kid. So my passion about sleep, my number one thing that I love is sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is when people stop breathing in their sleep because their throat has closed off. That's obstructive sleep apnea. There's a couple of different types, but that's the most common one. And one of the symptoms of it is snoring. And I have snored really badly since I was a little kid. My family always knew it, and it was, sort of a big joke. Yeah. So I snored when I was a little kid. All the way through, high school, I've always snored. I then graduated from high school and I went to Dal and got my science degree, and then I went into respiratory therapy. So in respiratory therapy, we work in hospitals and we work with sick babies, we work with deliveries, we do intubations, we run mechanical ventilators in the ICU. You might remember in COVID, one of the big problems was that respiratory therapists and ventilators were in short supply. So that's the job that we do. We keep people breathing and we help them with their breathing. But another thing that we do is we work in sleep labs. So I was working in a hospital that had a little tiny sleep lab that was run by the respiratory therapy department, and I started working in there, and I would see people who were really tired during the day, snored heavily, had high blood pressure, some were diabetic. Their spouses or bed partners would say that they actually saw them stop breathing in their sleep. These were the people I would see. We would test them, and it would show that, yes, they are stopping breathing. Yes, their oxygen level is going down, and we'd start them on treatment. I felt exactly the same way, and I was working in the sleep lab, but I'd never been tested. Right. So I got myself tested, and sure enough, I had sleep apnea too. We get people started on the treatment for sleep apnea, which I don't know if you've ever heard of CPAP. It stands for continuous
CPAP.
CPAP. Yeah. It stands for continuous positive airway pressure. So it's just a little mask.
It's a machine, right?
It's a machine. So a little mask people wear on their face, and this little machine blows air in there, and all it does is holds their throat open so it can't collapse on them anymore. That's the whole problem with sleep apnea.
Isn't this CPAP? Is that what you call it?
That's
CPAP?
it, CPAP.
Is it like a pressure thing? Like they put pressure in you?
It is. It's continuous positive airway pressure.
Can you feel it?
You can feel it.
You can feel it going.
I can. Yeah, you can. It's kind of neat. But what you're feeling, all it is, it's a fan in the box. There's no extra oxygen. There's nothing magical about it. This little box blows air into this mask, and it blows the air, just regular room air, right into your throat, and it just holds your throat open so it can't collapse on you when your muscles relax when you go to sleep at night. And that's what it's all about.
Does that strengthen the muscles?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't strengthen them, and it doesn't weaken them either, though.
It just holds them.
It just holds them. And so CPAP works great, but it only works while you're wearing it. So people who are on it need to wear it every night, all night when they go to sleep. Because when we go to sleep, you know how your muscles relax, all the muscles in your body relax. Well, the muscles in your throat relax as well. And so your throat goes from being nice and wide open, like it is right now, to narrowing off some. Well, for some people, their throats go from being wide enough that the air passing through has no obstruction at all. You can't hear me breathing. I can't hear you breathing. But when our muscles relax and our throats get narrow, for some people, their throats get very narrow. And that air pass. That's right. Yeah. And so that air passing through causes the tissue to... I do that well,
don't I?
That's
funny. Yeah, that's funny. You must have done that before.
Oh, yeah. A few million times. So the air causes that tissue to vibrate together, and sometimes it can...
stick.
Collapse completely, and your brain has to wake you up to take that big breath in. So people who snore and snort and have obstructive sleep apnea, their brains are waking up all night long. Not enough so that they remember waking up, because it's not enough that their memory kicks in.
Yeah.
But
it's just a subtle readjustment, and then they're back to whatever they were doing.
It is, but it has the same effect on their quality of sleep as if every time you snort like that, I called you on the phone and said, "Hey, Mitchell, you asleep yet? Hey, Mitchell, how you sleeping? Hey, Mitchell." And some people, it's very frequent.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how many times, like what's an average, I guess?
Okay, so normal, what we consider not a problem, don't treat it, it's so infrequent, is 0 to 5 times an hour of having a stopping. An hour. So stopping breathing or very, very shallow breathing, which we can record on our testing, home testing we do. It's not in a sleep lab. We do it in your own home. You just take a device home, it does the recordings, and you drop it back off to us a couple of days later. Super easy. We do these recordings, and they can tell if you're stopping breathing or having shallow breathing in your sleep. So 0 to 5 times an hour is considered normal. We all have a little shallow breathing when we're changing our sleep stages. So if we're going from a light stage of sleep to a deeper stage of sleep, our breathing gets a little bit shallow at that time. Those don't count. Those are natural and normal.
Just because you're not like physically able to take like a deep breath.
Exactly, because your muscles are relaxed.
Right.
And they're even more relaxed when you get in that deeper sleep. So 0 to 5 is normal. 5 to 15 is considered mild sleep apnea. So it's happening a little more than it should, but we're not getting critical yet. 15 to 30 times an hour is considered moderate sleep apnea.
See, I feel like that's too much. Like that's way too much. I feel like
it's a lot.
Yeah, that
right?
is a lot.
Because it's you waking up out of your deep sleep 15 to 30 times an hour, and that's considered moderate.
I know.
Which tells you that severe is 31 or above. And that's your brain waking up out of its deep sleep an average of once every other minute. That's severe. Right? So these people feel very tired during the day. Generally they feel tired. People have seen them snore.
What's that thing it's like called, like you suffer from tiredness or something? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Excessive daytime sleepiness or narcolepsy?
Narcolepsy, I think, is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so narcolepsy is very interesting. Narcolepsy is when people fall asleep during the day. Either they're very tired before it happens, and in any situation they can fall asleep, like standing up, driving, during a meeting, they can just fall asleep.
That's dangerous.
Or they have no indication that they're going to fall asleep, and they just do.
Really?
But during the day, unless you ask about what happens to somebody when they're asleep, and unless you do a sleep study, you have no idea if they actually have true narcolepsy, which is the daytime sleepiness, but a normal sleep study. But they've got this daytime sleepiness, which isn't explained by something happening with their breathing at night. Or if they have obstructive sleep apnea and they're dozing off all day long, that can look like narcolepsy. Now, many years ago, people who had obstructive sleep apnea were frequently diagnosed with narcolepsy because they weren't asked about their history at night or given a sleep study. They just were seen to be dozing off while they were trying to play cards in the evening, or sitting behind the wheel, they'd doze off. And the treatment for narcolepsy and obstructive sleep apnea are completely different. Narcolepsy is treated with medication. With obstructive sleep apnea, If we can get that person breathing at night exactly the way they are during the day, that daytime sleepiness goes away. Yeah. So if somebody comes to their doctor and they have daytime sleepiness, what happens now is they now get a sleep study before they're diagnosed with narcolepsy. If it still looks like it might be narcolepsy, they then go to the sleep lab where their brain waves can be recorded. They do a sleep study there, and then they do a daytime sleep study. And another thing that happens with narcolepsy is when people are sitting, in the afternoon, sort of up in a chair with their regular clothes on, and the lights are down, and they go to sleep then, they go right into dream sleep, which people without narcolepsy don't do that.
Right.
So that's how they're diagnosed with narcolepsy.
Cool.
If you want to get into the nitty gritty, my gosh, I never thought I'd get into this detail.
No, I want to know everything. It's like my mind's so curious, but then it's like I got to save questions. I can't do all the research, so
we might have to do a part 2.
Seriously, we'll do a practical. We'll go through all of it.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Nose breathing.
Yes.
It's been big. It's been quite talked about actually nowadays. It wasn't ever talked about before. So sleep apnea, is it because you're breathing through your mouth? Is that why it's an issue? Or if you were able to close your mouth and breathe through your nose, would your throat still?
Well, watch this. So I'm going to snore. Pretend I'm asleep. I'm going to snore. Now watch this. Mouth closed. I can still snore with my mouth closed. So you can still have sleep apnea even if you're a nose breather. What is happening when people are breathing through their mouth is when your throat is starting to close off, your throat is closing off and you're not getting as much air in as your body wants. Your brain recognizes it. What's the best thing to do if you're not getting as much air in through your nose?
Yeah.
Your brain wakes your mouth up to try and get as much air as possible. Unfortunately, what can happen with a lot of people is when their mouth is open, their jaw falls back and all the tissue attached to their jaw falls back as well. So your sleep apnea can even get a little bit worse.
Extra weight on your throat? Is that why? Or
it's because did you ever take swimming lessons?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when you were doing CPR on people, you would do a jaw thrust? To get their airway opened up like that. Well, the opposite of a jaw thrust is when your jaw falls back. All your soft tissue in your whole body, but we're talking about your throat right now, is attached to the bone. And if the bone moves backwards, all the soft tissue moves backwards, and your throat goes from being this wide open to this wide open. So if say you snored and you had somebody there to do this to your jaw all night long and push it really far, you may not snore. And that is actually one of the treatments that there is for snoring, either mild sleep apnea or snoring. It doesn't really work enough for the other moderate and severe sleep apnea, but it's a little bite plate that your dentist makes you put in your mouth, and it makes it so your jaw stays like that all night, which opens up your throat. And it makes it so it can't collapse as much when you go to sleep. Doesn't work for less movement. Yeah. So it doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for some people, and it's worth a shot if the CPAP doesn't work for you. Cool. So nose breathing, though, is you hear about it so much now because humans do better when they nose breathe. It filters out the air more and it heats and humidifies the air, which is just much better for our lungs. That doesn't happen when we mouth breathe. So breathing through our nose is good, but a lot of us have sinus problems or even very narrow noses. You've got a very narrow nose. Yeah. So you want to do a little trick? Sure. I'm going to show you a little trick. So just kind of close your mouth and we're just going to breathe in and out through our nose, just breathe in through your nose kind of fast a couple of times. See what that feels like? Okay, now go like this. Pull your cheeks out like that, like up a little bit. And
is this good?
Yeah. Okay, do it again. Here, put your fingers down again and breathe in again. See what it feels like. Now do this. See how much easier it is? That's how
opened up.
It's opened up. And that's how breathe right strips work. So breathe right strips, the way they work
is that the ones that go over your nose?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they open up your nose so you get a bit more air and it's easier to breathe in. They work for some people who snore as well.
They'll put them on overnight, right?
That's right. And they do work for some people. And the reason those work, it's not necessarily that you're getting more air, but we are like getting into so much detail here.
Fine.
But if
no,
you're
I love
interested,
it. No, I'm
okay.
fully interested.
Okay.
Even if I tell people sometimes, even if I look like I'm not interested, or like sometimes people will be telling me information, especially with my friends, and I'll just like act goofy, or like, I guess I can give you an example. I have a roommate with me here, and he was like telling me all the things about him doing his work, and I like put my sweater on, I put it like behind my ears, and I was just like moving around like goofy, but I was fully interested in what he was saying. I was just acting like a goof. So if I seem like anything else that I'm not interested, I actually am really interested.
You seem perfectly interested, by the way. Okay, so we're going to talk about nose breathing a bit and people who have skinny noses versus nice wide noses. So I'm lucky I've got a nice wide nose. I never get too stuffed up. So you know how you've got skinny straws and nice fat straws. So pretend you've got one of those long skinny straws versus one of those long slushy straws, one of those big long fat slushy straws. So if you were breathing in through one of those skinny straws and you sucked in really, really hard, what can happen with those is the middle of it can actually collapse. You're sucking so hard, you're creating so much negative pressure in there, the middle of it could actually collapse if it were long enough. If you were doing that with one of those Polar Pop straws, you would never be able to suck the sides in because it's so wide. Yeah. The same thing happens in your throat. If you've just got a little narrow airway, you've got a skinny straw. And your nostrils are the end of that skinny straw. And when you are sucking really hard to try and take a breath in, it can suck your airway in big time. But if your airway and your nasal passages and your throat is one of those nice big fat straws, you're never going to be able to suck hard enough to collapse those sides. So sleep apnea is all about the shape of your throat. If you've got a narrow throat when you go to sleep, whether it's because you've got a narrow throat naturally, if it's because you're older and your tissues are floppier because you're older, or if it's because you've got extra weight on and fat tissue, which you can see when you look in the mirror and you put a little weight on, you can see it sticking out in your neck and throat, here when you look in the mirror, it's also pushing in on your throat. And when your muscles relax, it collapses your throat a little bit. So it can be all those causes, but the whole thing, it's about the shape of your throat. And if you got a narrow throat, it's going to collapse on you at night.
So is the only way to get a wider throat through like surgery?
Well, you can do surgery. So with adults, really the only surgery that's been long-term shown to work is if you get your jaw broken and moved out, it opens your throat up.
Well, that's why they say like mouth breathers, your throat goes back and they lose that chin. And then when they say like they mouth breathe or nose breathe, their chin will actually start to come back a little bit because their mouth will just shape to how it's supposed to be. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
See, I didn't know, I hadn't heard that it actually will sort of reshape and go out.
I heard like your jawline will start to show again. Things will start to like loosen up here or like tighten up, I guess.
Will you send me a link on that?
Yeah, I will.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's unique.
That would be really neat.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I kind of lost it there. What were we talking? We were just chatting.
We're talking about nose breathing, like throat opening up through surgery and stuff.
Oh, surgery, right. So breaking your jaw, moving it out, that works. Some people, though, they used to do this surgery where they would go into your throat and take out all the extra tissue in there. So they'd actually go into your throat, take out your uvula, which dangles down, your tonsils, your adenoids, and then take a strip of tissue all the way around your throat. And you would think if we got rid of that tissue, your throat would open up and it wouldn't collapse as much. It should work. But after about 6 months, people who have that surgery, their sleep apnea tends to start coming back and it gets worse because soft tissue
I was going to say it's like less weight. So like you're just easier to pull in. It's almost like tissue paper instead of paper towel. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah. And so what this grows back as is scar tissue and it can collapse more easily. Another thing too, having all that throat surgery, it interferes with the natural swallowing mechanism. So our digestive system starts right at our lips, and we take our food in, we chew it, and then we start to swallow, and our tongue and everything sort of shoves all the food down in a natural pattern. When you start messing around with stuff in there and taking tissue out, it can really interfere with your swallowing. And actually, I have one client who said that since they've had it, they can't eat spaghetti or drink milk, or it comes out their nose. So I don't usually recommend that people request that surgery. Some ear, nose, throat doctors still do it, but not too many.
Maybe if it was like life-threatening, maybe, and it was like, we need to open this up.
It doesn't even work for that, but the jaw surgery does. So that's one that can kind of work. CPAP, though, continuous positive airway pressure, they call it the gold standard in treatment because it just works. It's not the easiest thing to get used to, but once you do, if you can push through those first few weeks, man, it's a life changer.
Is it just on your nose?
Well, there's two different kinds of masks. Well, there's 100 different styles of masks, but there's ones that just involve your nose. The ones that involve your nose, your mouth naturally has to stay closed in order for that to work. However, and most snorers breathe with their mouth open, so you would think they wouldn't work very often. However, when we get that air pressure in there and your throat becomes a normal shape again, humans will naturally sleep with their mouths closed. And most of my clients, oh sure, thanks.
That's fine.
And most of my clients, I start them on a nose mask, and it usually works just fine. If after a few days their mouth is still coming open, no sweat. We just switch them to a mask that goes over their nose and mouth. Then they can still have their mouth open, but that air that's blowing in their throat doesn't blow out their mouth and into the room, and then they don't get the pressure in their throat where they need it. It would be the same thing as having a huge hole poked in the hose, and then all the pressure, all the air goes out into the room instead of opening their throat up. But if they can keep their mouth closed and have their nose mask on, that pressure's maintained for their throat.
Cool.
Yeah. And they're cool. and the equipment is so much better than it used to be. It's very comfortable now, and it didn't used to be.
Is it warm air, or is it cool, or is it like?
You're like, I don't know. You got like a sixth sense about this stuff, yeah. So it's warm air, and but it's not just warm. It's warmed and humidified. So all CPAP machines have a little water tub that sticks on them, and the water tub sits on a little plate. It heats the water up and delivers a little bit of humidity.
Does that filter it or no?
Yeah, there's a filter on the machine. When it sucks the air in, it filters it. So it's clean air going through the machine and going over the water tub and then coming up the hose to you. So it is filtered.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nose breathing, super important. I never did it really. I used to catch myself mouth breathing a little bit, just like when I'm tired or like exercising, and it's like, no, still breathe through your nose, because I heard like a runner say you'll get more out of your run if you just breathe through your nose.
Really?
Because it's just like you're forcing yourself to take bigger I don't even know how to put it, just more proper inhalation of air, I guess.
Got
that makes
it.
Sense?
Yeah.
So you're like you actually take in more with your nose, I think, right? Don't you? Than your mouth?
Well,
I'm kind of jumbling my thoughts right now. But.
No, that's okay. I think it would depend on the person probably. But you can, if your nose is open enough, you can get lots of air. And you'd certainly be using the muscles more when you would do that, which is always a good thing.
I find, so I used to get bloody noses.
Oh, dear.
Like, since I was born, pretty much. Mom said when I was born, like, I don't know if it was a couple hours or a couple days after, but I got a nosebleed, and ever since it was like all the time. Like in elementary school, it was like almost every day of my life. Yeah. And like we went to the hospital to get a check, but they could never do anything. So as I've been getting older, it's been like less and less, but it was still like a routine. Every season change, every kind of hot and cold or moist. So anyways, I started nose breathing like 2 years ago, like consciously, to remember to always do it. And my nosebleeds have dissipated like to 3 nosebleeds a year. Like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, it's very unique. So I don't know if maybe just because I think my blood vessels were just weak or something, but maybe just constantly putting air on them, like consistently, just had that enough strength to...
that would make sense to me.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
I didn't know research at all, but I'm just assuming that's what's happening.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. When you are running, you know how you're kind of making yourself an exercise, breathe through your nose.
Yeah. It's almost makes it harder.
It would, because you're sucking harder through a straw, right? Instead of your mouth, which is wide open. But if you were to use a breathe right strip, you'd probably notice a big difference when you go out running. Yeah,
Really?
get some of the... And, excuse me.
Because I do know that... I saw a podcast one time. I don't know who the guy was, but he just had it as like a regular day use. He just put it on and he was like... so much better.
Yep. And there's weightlifters who do that as well, who just use it. It just opens it up. If you can get over that it looks a little weird and people get used to doing it, it really does improve your breathing that way, especially during exercise when you would be like, well, if you go running, you then have to run back up this hill to your house. And so then you would really want to breathe right.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that many times.
Yeah.
That's funny. What else is there to ask of you about? The business side of it.
Yeah.
You explored that and you went on your own type thing because you could work in a hospital, couldn't you?
I did. Well, actually, this is a good place to pick back up how I get into being a sleep specialist. So I was working in the sleep lab. I got diagnosed with sleep apnea and I started on a CPAP machine. I had a really hard time. I was over a month before I was used to it. My husband and I was in my early 20s, and my husband and I were sleeping in separate rooms because of my snoring. Wow. That's how bad my snoring was. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to start on this machine. So I got on my machine, and I was well over a month before I was sleeping through the night with it. But I pushed through because this is what I was trying to do at my job at the hospital.
Right.
Diagnose people with sleep apnea and help them get used to CPAP. How can I tell people to wear a machine if I can't even do it myself? So I'm somebody who can get stubborn when I need to. And so I stuck to it and I got used to it. And like I say, it was 20 years ago and I never go without it. Yeah. I've got one in my room. I've got one in my suitcase for when I travel. Wow. I just won't be without it.
Is it mini?
My travel one is mini. You can hold it in your hand.
Really?
That's
cool.
They're tiny. I'll show you if I ever come back.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
So I continued doing that in the sleep lab, and I realized the town I was living in, it was Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. The people in our community had to travel to Halifax to get any treatment for their CPAP needs. So we diagnose them in the hospital and say, this is what you need for a machine. And then they'd have to go to Halifax to get their machine. And getting your machine is not like going down to Walmart and buying a machine. It takes a lot of getting used to, and you need the right people behind you and the right team, the right education, and number one, the right mask in order to make it work. And nobody was able to make it work because they didn't have any of that stuff in our town. So I decided to start a little company. I was still working full time, but I wanted to help people out. I knew the equipment. I could set it up. I could troubleshoot. I was wearing it myself. I knew the different equipment that was available. So I started traveling to people's houses and starting it.
Very cool.
Within about 6 months, I realized how much time I was spending on the road and wasting. So I rented a little office, still working full time. Eventually, I dropped to 50%. And within a year or two, I had to quit my job because I was so busy.
Cool.
And so in the first 5 years, I built my company up, learned so much, made every mistake in the book.
Business-wise?
Business-wise. Yeah. I tried to do it all on my own. I answered all the calls, all the emails, did all the testing, did all setting up of the machines.
That's the biggest learning curve of an entrepreneur.
It really is. And realizing that if I had people in place, partners in place with me to do the stuff they're good at that I'm not good at, I'd be much better off.
Right.
So I sold my business in Bridgewater, and then I was able to move home back to Sussex. I'm from here with my husband and my young son. He was only one at the time. Cool. And moved back to Sussex, and I started Sussex Sleep Clinic. I now own KV Sleep Clinic, and we're going to continue to expand in the next few months. So
that's awesome.
Now I've got a whole team of people who I'm really, really lucky to work with. I feel like I work for because I depend on them so much. And our office in Sussex is over at the hospital, and we're open 5 days a week. answer the emails and phone calls 5 days a week, and people can walk in and see us when they need to.
Yeah.
So
and you can, what is it? You can do a free analysis or use the machine for free just to see what, if you're just curious about your sleep.
So if somebody is like, I'm just not sleeping that good, or my bed partner says I snore, or I'm waking up tired and with a sore throat, dry mouth, I've got high blood pressure, I'm not feeling rested, I wonder what's going on, they just need to call our office. We do require a prescription from their doctor to do a home sleep test, but we can usually contact the doctor's office and get that. So the first thing the person needs to do is just call our office. It's Sussex Sleep Clinic. They can look us up. We've got a Facebook page, website, or it's 506-434-7667. Just give us a call. We'll get a little info from them, and we get a hold of their doctor and get the prescription we need. But at the same time, we just book them to come in and pick up the equipment and take it home for a couple of days. Now, that's the testing equipment. Nobody needs a CPAP machine if they don't have sleep apnea.
Right.
And I would not sell one to somebody who doesn't need it. It wouldn't hurt them, but it sure wouldn't do them any good.
Yeah.
And they won't sleep any better with it. It's only used to treat sleep apnea and heavy snoring, and they don't need it besides. So first we have to find out if they have sleep apnea. So the little device we send with them, it's a little belt that goes around their middle. A little thing that
Is there sensors on the belt?
Yes, there is. So there's a little box on the front that the belt clips into. And I'll tell you how it all works here in a sec.
Cool.
The little thing that goes in their nose, it looks like oxygen cannula. So you know when you've seen people wear oxygen that just sticks in their nose? It's identical to that. But there's no oxygen coming out of it. It just tells us when they're breathing in and out. And it can monitor snoring as well. And then there's a little thing that goes on their finger. You know when you go to the hospital and they check your oxygen level and your heart rate? That's detected on this as well. So they put this on, and what it records is what's happening to their breathing all night when they're sleeping. So it can tell us when they're breathing in and out, so when their muscles are working. So that little belt around their middle stretches every time they go to take a breath. When you take a breath, the little thing that's in your nose should tell us there's air going in and going out. And the little thing on your finger should show that your oxygen level is nice and high in the 90%, 94 and above when you're asleep, pretty much. And your heart rate should be nice and steady. No big spikes or anything.
Yeah.
But what we see when people have sleep apnea, what we'll often see with obstructive sleep apnea in particular, is that belt keeps moving all night long. They're trying to take a breath in, but the air that's moving in and out stops. They're trying to suck air in with their muscles, so the belt's moving, but there's no air moving in and out. Then, on their oxygen sensor thing, we see their oxygen level going down. And we also see their heart rate going up because their oxygen level's going down. And then what we see is a big snort.
Yeah.
We'll see a snore. We'll see the air start again. The belt's still moving. Then their oxygen level comes back up and their heart rate comes back down. And this happens time and time again. So like we were talking before, if it's 5 or less times an hour, we consider that, okay, not enough really to treat. 5 to 15 times, mild.
That just seems so crazy to me. Like 5 to 15 seems like it should be
a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Well, and 15 to 30 is moderate, and 31 and above is severe. I frequently see people in the 60s, some in the 80s.
Are these older people mostly?
No, not necessarily. I had a young lady once. It was many years ago. She was 19 at the time, and she was 115 times an hour. She stopped breathing.
So she didn't sleep.
No, she didn't sleep. And her father had severe sleep apnea, and this runs in families.
Okay.
And it's not a DNA kind of a thing. Since sleep apnea is about the shape of your throat, we've got the same shaped throats as our parents, right? So if your mom or your dad snored heavily or had sleep apnea, you got a pretty good chance because you've probably got the same shaped throat as them too.
Great.
So something to keep in mind. And I have clients where I've got every brother and sister in the whole family, and mom or dad too, because, one person gets treated for it. their snoring stops.
Mm-hmm.
They start feeling better during the day. They start picking up old habits that are not old habits, but old hobbies that they used to have, going fishing or woodworking or whatever. And their siblings start asking, like, what's up with you? You look better. Why did you get off your blood pressure pills? And what's your secret? And then it turns out that everybody is snoring, and they decide to get tested and treated. And
Right. So is snoring bad?
Snoring is not bad if it doesn't wake you up and make you feel tired during the day. So if you're a heavy snorer but you feel great during the day, if it's not bothering your bed partner, and if you don't have any high blood pressure, diabetes, depression and anxiety are also a symptom of sleep apnea. So if your snoring doesn't affect your health or how you feel during the day, it's not really a problem. Right. However, it's an early symptom of you might have some sleep apnea in your future, because snoring is caused because your throat's narrow and that air passing through is causing the tissue to vibrate together.
Right.
You may stop breathing or have shallow breathing 5 times or less with your snoring. So it's not really a cardiovascular risk problem, because sleep apnea does cause heart problems.
Well, is it because it's jolting all the time? Is that why? Would that take a tear on it or no?
Well, I'll tell you why it's a problem is because the biggest problem is that what gets you to wake up to take that breath in finally when you've stopped breathing in your sleep is your brain tells your body to release a burst of adrenaline. And that adrenaline can cause inflammation in your whole system.
Really?
And inflammation can cause high blood pressure, and it can lead to an increased risk of stroke and heart disease. So it's just a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect. And so if we can get you breathing normally at night, your brain doesn't have to wake you up to take that breath in that you need to get the oxygen you need and to breathe out the carbon dioxide that your body's producing. You get into your deep sleep and stay there, and your cardiovascular risks start to go down because the sleep apnea is out of it. You don't have sleep apnea when you're wearing your CPAP machine. Right. And so sleep apnea, say you just snore now and you're 25 years old. Your throat is narrow. You may not need any treatment now. Sleep apnea does not usually stay the same, and it sure doesn't get better. It kind of only increases with time. So it's something to keep an eye on, because if you start feeling tired during the day, or if you end up, having a bed partner that's saying they're seeing you stop breathing in your sleep, or your blood pressure starts to creep up, it's a good idea to then get tested, because it could be leading to a health problem down the road.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think if I snore at night. I don't think I do.
Well, there's some really cool apps that you can get on your phone that will record your sleep at night, so you can see if you've got it. So just do a little Google search about snore apps or sleep monitor apps, and you can set it by your bedside, and it'll kind of record any snoring that's going on. Or if there's no snoring going on. Oh yeah, technology's been amazing, because people are getting to see, people record their sleep all the time and can see if they have good sleep or not.
Yeah.
They're not 100% accurate, and some sleep specialists and medical specialists will tell you not to pay any attention to it. I think they're great because it gets people paying attention to their sleep and their sleep health.
Yeah, it's an excuse for the awareness of it. So
exactly.
At least you're thinking about it. Yeah,
exactly. And they're pretty darn good, because a lot of my clients will see that their sleep is very disrupted at night, and then they get on their CPAP treatment. It doesn't get fixed right away, because even if your breathing is better, once you get on treatment, just getting used to the gear takes a few weeks. But after 3 or 4 weeks, they're starting to see they're sleeping a little more soundly. They're not moving around as much at night. They're not having as many fluctuations to their heart rate. So their health is just all over better. I'm really glad people are paying more attention to their sleep with technology.
Yeah, it's definitely taken a boom of awareness too the past couple of years.
Yeah, sure has.
Nobody talked about sleep back then, but
no.
You know what's the worst is shift work.
Oh my gosh.
For your sleep. Whoever invented that is brutal.
Well, I tell you what, with shift work, humans are just not meant to be awake all night long, or to have their sleep when they're supposed to get their sleep rotated around the clock. Very few people, some people, but very few people adapt well with shift work, and very few people sleep well during the day. So if you work shift work, the average person who even thinks that they deal well with shift work sleeps an average of 2 hours less during the day than they would during the night. And that's a huge deficit.
Yeah, because you miss it. If you're like awake an extra hour, it takes like a couple days to recover.
Oh, definitely.
Like officially recover. You might feel fine, but like your body wouldn't have 100% recovery rate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you're totally right. Yeah.
But no, I've worked shift work for 1 year, and some people are just, I love it. It's great. I love that I don't have to work this amount of time. I sleep a little bit and I do everything I can through the day. They have enough energy all night. Like, and then there's other people, and you can tell they're just miserable. Like, they're just fighting every day just to get through a work day and just get through another weekend of whatever.
How did you feel about it?
I was good until the 7th month. And
really?
The 7th month, I was just gone. Really? Yeah. I've never, like, had depression, but, like, I was just down. Like, I wasn't, like, depressed, but I was just, like, the motivation to do stuff, like, my favorite sport in the world is snowboarding, and in the winter it was just like I didn't even like really feel like snowboarding because I was just like I'm drained.
So when did you start the job? What month would you say?
August.
You started
and then
in August.
I ended before August sometime.
So your 7th month would have been in the winter. Right?
Yeah,
so
you
were trying to sleep during
no sunlight ever.
Exactly. So you got no sunlight at all.
And I didn't take any like vitamin D supplements, so it was it was brutal. It was brutal.
it would be. So it really got to you not having that daylight. And that's a huge problem with shift work as well. Shift work, even if your sleep is like perfect and you don't snore and you lay in one position all night, and it's still a sleep disorder on its own because you just don't get as many hours as humans do at night.
Right. And your rhythm cycle is night and day.
It really is for most humans.
Yeah. Unless, all night shift you can most people do pretty okay. Just night shift, like, because then
if they don't
flip, because then their body gets accustomed, and you kind of figure out a schedule, which is nice. But yeah, shift work just bouncing back and forth.
It
all
is,
the time.
And they physically might do okay that way, but if you look at the other aspects of their life, which I mean, we're all made up of different components in our life, so their sleep and work might be just fine, but when somebody in the family is up all night long and they have to sleep through when the rest of their family's awake, and they miss family get-togethers and they miss get-togethers with friends in the evenings and stuff, it can have an effect on their social life and their family life. So, a single person working shift work, constant nights isn't always an issue
because you just have to worry about yourself.
You just have to worry about yourself, but it can affect the family life. But really, it's life, isn't it? For a lot of people, they got to work shift work. So if we can try and get their quality of sleep when they are sleeping the very best it can be, and if they can make sure their sleep is as healthy as possible, then maybe the rest of that life won't suffer.
Yeah, I've been telling some of my friends I want to know what it's like to have like 2 weeks straight of just consistent sleep. Like go to bed at 10:30, wake up at 6 or whatever schedule I choose, and just stick with that every single day for 2 weeks straight. I wonder how much better I'd feel. Because I feel fine. Like I do feel pretty good, but I feel like I just don't notice it. Does that make sense? So it's like, well, I've been running on going to bed at 11 one night and then going to bed at 1 and then flipping it, and then sometimes you wake up at 5 a.m. and then sometimes you're waking up at 8 and it's just all flipped. And
so what do you think you could do if you wanted to really do that experiment? What sort of things would you do to do that?
Make sure I'm in bed by 10:30 and just wake up at. I know I did a self-analysis on myself, and I went to bed at the same time every night, and I just naturally let myself wake up, and it was 7 hours and 15 minutes on average. Exactly. That's the amount of sleep I needed.
That sounds like it must be what you need.
Yeah. So like 7 hours and 15 minutes was just like the average. Sometimes it was like 7 hours and 30 minutes and sometimes it was a little less. So I just, it always happened to be like the 15-minute mark after 7.
Isn't that interesting?
So I just let myself naturally wake up. And I was just like, what time is it? Then I'd like check, and then, yeah.
Well, that would be interesting to see if you end up doing that and going at a certain time and waking at a certain time and giving yourself 7 hours and 15 minutes. It'd be interesting to see how you feel during the day, to see if you notice any changes, if you feel better. Like and you may not. I mean, and then it's not a big deal right now to go to bed at the same time. But say, something happens and you have a family and, whatever, you get some sort of schedule thing that you have to do every morning, you might notice a difference then. It's the same for sleep for anyone. It's like, kind of, what are your sleep goals? If somebody's sleep goals are, they're retired and they don't care if they get up before noon or not, then that's
so
cool. But going to bed at 3 a.m. and getting up at noon for some, if somebody's retired or they're independently wealthy and they don't have to go to work or whatever, and it fits in their life, there's no problems with that at all. But if their spouse is upset because they're sleeping all morning or they're, supposed to go to work at 8, but they're sleeping till noon, that's certainly a job. So it's a matter of kind of seeing what your priorities are, I guess.
Exactly.
Your own, not somebody else's, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny that you mentioned, like, sleep is more important to, like, the other effects of it, like your family, because you don't really think about that, I guess. But if you had a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and they're like, I want to go for a walk every morning, but you're like, no, I need to sleep till 9 every morning, and it's like, why can't we go for a walk at 8? Like, and then that's going to jeopardize everything else. And
yeah, you're exactly right. It's kind of it can affect your bed partner, your kids, so for example, if somebody, say I snored loud, it's going to affect my bed partner.
Right. Yeah, because my dad says he gets a great night of sleep if he gets to bed first before mom. Oh,
okay.
And then, but if mom gets to bed before him, he knows he's going to have to wake up at least a couple times from her snoring. Sorry, mom, I'm throwing you under the water, but she's a loud snorer, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But, so that person's, I'm going to take your mom and dad out of it.
Okay.
But say we have Johnny, and Johnny snores like crazy, and but Susie is a perfect sleeper, and she doesn't snore at all, and sleeps in one position and all of that. But we've got Johnny, who maybe he has severe sleep apnea, and he does that 31 times an hour. Susie is actually going to have her sleep disturbed 31 times an hour as well.
Whether she wakes up or not?
Whether it's due to her or not. She's got somebody in the bed who's giving a little kick or rolling over or making a big noise through the night. If she has sleep apnea too, and she stops breathing 31 times an hour, he's waking her up 31 times an hour. She's waking herself up 31 times an hour. Her sleep apnea, or her sleep quality, is actually just as bad as if her sleep apnea were his and hers. So they're waking each other up. So in order for them both to sleep better, they better both get that addressed.
Yeah. 2 questions. Yep. You mentioned the uvula.
Yep.
What is the point of the uvula? I've never even thought about it before.
So the uvula is that dangly thing down at the back of your throat. It just assists with your swallowing, is what it does.
It assists it?
Assists.
Like separates it?
No, not separating it, but it helps with that whole flow? Movement of everything being pushed back. And it also helps with when the food is going back, or spit or drink or whatever, it helps to block off the channel between the back of your nose and your throat. It helps to kind of block that off so you don't get food and stuff up your nose. So if that's gone, there you go. Spaghetti
really?
Out the nose. Yeah.
I've never even thought about the uvula before. Because how often do you think about it, I guess, on a daily?
You don't, but I have clients who will come in, and if they're heavy snorers, you can actually suck it down your throat, and it gets really swollen and sore. And so if it's swollen in the morning, it stretches down and it gets inflamed, so it gets sort of swollen.
Because I know you can bring it up. You can, people can suck in their uvula. Do you know what I mean? That kind of shortens.
Oh,
do you know what I'm talking about?
I've never heard of that.
You can see it shrink up. Yeah.
Never. I'll try that one. I'll try that one. Well, I've heard of it getting stretched and elongated, and you feel like you've got a glob of something in your throat all day long. Because with the snoring and stopping breathing, it is so traumatic on your airway. And when I say airway, I mean your nasal passages, so your nostrils, your sinuses, going back into the back of your throat, behind your tongue, all the way to your vocal cords. Sleep apnea is just between here and your vocal cords, nothing below there. So all that tissue in there. So when you are snoring, it's just rattling all of that tissue. Little tears, inflammation, stress on it. And so viruses and stuff can get in easier. Post-nasal drip, swollen sinuses, sinus infection.
Drip. Yeah. I got that from COVID.
You did?
Yeah. And
you still got it, or is it gone?
It's gone now.
Okay, good.
Just like, I don't remember when I got COVID, but it got into my lungs.
Did it?
My lungs would like rasp, but I think it naturally cleaned itself out. But yeah, I could feel it like going down. Oh, it's nasty. Oh,
I know.
I don't like it.
And some people have that all the time. It's just constant swallowing all the time. It's just your sinuses trying to soothe themselves. And it's just the mucus going down your throat. I think a lot of your viewers are going to turn this off right about now. It's getting pretty gross.
Well, you'd be surprised. Sometimes I have a podcast and I'm like, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, this is a great episode, great episode, great episode. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Another thing you mentioned was if you wanted to get a machine to try it, you said dry mouth. Sometimes I think about every year, there's like a couple days where I'll just have a super dry mouth when I wake up. Is there reasons for that?
It's probably because, you might be really stuffy that particular night, and so your mouth is opening up to get the breath you need, and it's just drying your mouth out that way. So often people who snore a lot and have sleep apnea, one of the symptoms, they just wake up with a dry mouth because their mouth is open all night long. For you, if it's only a couple of times a year, it's probably just due to a cold or a virus you've got causing inflammation, and so your mouth breathing at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we were talking before about the testing equipment, and that that's how we do it. We send them home with the gear, and then they do a couple of nights on it, and they drop it back off to us. We download all the data, and we've got independent partners. They don't care if the person has sleep apnea or not, that score it, so it's completely outside of our business. We get the results back, and we get them back to the client. I call the client or email them about 2 weeks later. That's sort of the latest amount of time. So really quick turnaround time, quick to get in, quick to get your results back. And we fax them to their doctor as well, so they can go talk to their doctor about it as well.
Is there sometimes people get it tested and there's no issues?
Lots.
Oh, you're fine. Oh.
Yeah, if they get a test and there's no issues, there's nothing that we can do besides help them with sleep tips and that sort of thing.
Like, there's like some jumps here or something.
Yeah, that's right. I still review it with them, but it's still, if it's normal and their breathing is normal, their sleep problems could be caused by something else, but it's not due to their breathing. Sometimes they need to go into the sleep lab and have a more invasive study where they look at their brain waves. Very interesting studies, but we can't do that at home. It takes a really long time to get into the sleep lab to get that done. So not always, but their wait list comes and goes. But for straight up sleep apnea, where somebody snores, they don't have a lot of medical problems, a home sleep test really is the best option. Cool. Getting into the sleep lab just takes too long. Right. So if they end up having sleep apnea, they don't always. If it's normal, there's nothing that I can do with a CPAP machine that's going to help at all. They there's nothing to treat because they don't snore heavily or they don't have sleep apnea. If they do, we offer a free 1-month trial on the device just to start getting used to it. They're not 100% used to it by the end, but at least they kind of get a taste of it to see if it's something that'll help them. And I can see the data from their machine every day. There's a modem in all the new machines, and I can give them an app as well so they can see their data every day. Really cool.
That's
so
awesome.
They can see the numbers changing. So they can see their 31 or 50 times an hour or 15 times an hour start coming down. They can see how well their mask is fitting, and they can see how long they were able to keep it on. Gives them a score, and they can also shoot to get a better score every day. It really helps with people sticking to it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it gives them a little more control over their own health too, as opposed to somebody making them do something. Mm-hmm. It's, you're in control. You're the one. You've got the app, and we can change the settings to help them. And we're in very close communication over that month to make sure they're able to get used to it. And most people's insurance companies do cover it. We were talking there about people doing their free CPAP trial. So getting used to CPAP is kind of a struggle. I find it's really good if people get a bit stubborn about it and they just say, I'm just going to put the hours in on it, and that's the only thing that's going to get their brain used to it. Sure, I have the odd person who puts it on, loves how it feels, they go to sleep like that night and never look back. That really is rare, though. So it takes a professional sleep therapist to fit the person with the mask, find out if it's going to be a nose mask or a full face mask. Generally, I start with a nose mask. Most people can get away with it. If they can't, then we just change their mask for them. So we got all kinds of equipment that people can try if it doesn't work out. We set the pressure, how hard the machine blows, to the lowest we possibly can. And when they take the machine home, the air is going to start up at the lowest pressure possible. And it can tell what's going on in the person's throat when they go to sleep. So it's going to go up and down according to...
it will regulate itself.
It will.
Wow.
It's called an auto CPAP machine. And it's going to go up and down depending on what they need. And us clinicians, we're in touch very closely with the client, especially over the first few weeks, to make sure we get that comfortable for what they need. Because like I said before, the number one things to get used to CPAP are having the right equipment, which includes the mask, that's number one, the right education, and having a team there that you can go to with any problems that you're having, and that's us. And that leads to very high, sticking to it rate, okay? So a few tips when you're getting used to your CPAP machine. Make sure your mask is comfortable. That's number one. If not, contact your sleep therapist. Make sure you have a humidifier on your machine. Some people use it without the water tub. Very hard to get used to, and it can be very drying. Make sure your mask isn't too desperately tight. If it is, you've got the wrong mask on. Make sure your family is really aware of what's going on. It can be scary, especially for kids. If they walk in the middle of the night and mom's got this thing on her face and a tube sticking out and a machine making noise, it can really freak them out. Bring your kids in.
Is the machine with white noise? Is it like a white noise?
Very similar.
Okay, so you can fall asleep to it.
It's very quiet. It's way quieter than like a fan in your room.
Oh, okay.
Certainly better than snoring.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So bring the kids in. They're not going to hurt the equipment. The machine won't hurt them. Let them turn it on and off. Let them feel the air. Put it on their face. And just tell them it's mommy or daddy's snore mask. And that it's going to stop them from snoring, and everybody's going to sleep better. And kids get super interested in it. I've even had a couple of clients who needed to make a couple of changes on their machine, and they just put their kid on the phone to make the changes because they're better with buttons and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
So in the end, if you put a few weeks in, it's like totally worth it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then some sleep tips.
Some sleep tips. All right. Well, we already talked about caffeine, cutting that out after about lunchtime.
And schedule.
Schedule is another big one. Get up at the same time of day every day, and then you'll go to bed the same time every day. Eating. So eating late at night keeps you up, and the reason is your guts need a rest when you go to sleep as well. And if you've got a full belly, your body's going to have to digest all night long, and you're really not getting your proper rest. You want a nice, cool, dark room. So either have a fan on, or if it's the summertime, you really should have an air conditioner in your room, or at least on during the summer. Most younger people will, but I know a lot of older people who try and get away with just fans. It's not enough. If you're sweating all night long, you're not going to sleep properly.
I've been sweating the past 2 nights, actually, because I have a huge sunburn on my back. I'm like super red.
Oh, no.
And yeah, I've just been so warm, just laying there.
Oh my
just,
gosh, you must
overheating.
be. You must be. So you also want to be comfortable. So if you have any pain going on like yours, you want to get that addressed. You might want to get some aloe on there, or take a Tylenol, because the pain will wake you up through the night.
Yeah.
You also need to have a really dark room. So you want it to be nice and dark. whether, hopefully at night you don't have a big street light blaring in. If you do, you need to get a good blind so you're not seeing that. Even if you don't think it's keeping you awake, our eyelids are very, very thin, and light can get through very easily and wake our brain up. Okay? If you're sleeping during the day, especially, you need blackout blinds and you need to tape them down on the edges, okay?
I tell my brother works a late shift. He works from 11 o'clock at night, or like 11 p.m. till 7:30 a.m. He has a night shift.
Oh my goodness.
And he doesn't really have good blinds. Like, I stayed the night at his house, and obviously he goes to work at night, so I slept in his bed one night.
Right.
And I was like, man, if I was in your position when I did shift work, I actually slept in this room where we're at, and I closed off. I put towels over it, and I taped it because I was like, it has to be pitch black. If I see even an ounce of light coming through, my body will be like,
okay, good.
Up and at it.
I'm glad you recognize that. So yeah, your brother. Okay, I got a good gift for him. So this is what you should get him next time you have a birthday or something.
Okay.
So
it's coming up
if
this
he
summer,
won't,
so
if you could buy him really nice blinds, but I'll give you a cheaper option. Buy him one of those sleep masks and get him to use that instead, because that blocks it out nicely. And you can get these really neat ones. You can get them on Amazon. They're sleep masks, but they're made of foam, and they have where your eyeballs are. They're actually kind of cupped into the foam, so they don't put any pressure on your eyeballs.
Smart.
Yeah, they're lovely. So he could use those, and it needs to be quiet as well, because you got to realize most people are awake during the day. The person trying to sleep, they have to put up with doors slamming, phones ringing, cars going by, people's phones dinging, that sort of thing. So they really should wear earplugs at night. Well, at night, and those guys should wear it during the day.
Yeah, just to get the best result, probably.
Just to get the best results.
I should mention that to him. Like, take it serious.
Oh, it can make a huge difference to their sleep, because they don't realize they don't remember waking up every time somebody slams a door or the phone rings. However, it just jolts their brain out of its deep sleep, but not enough for their memory to kick in.
That's smart, actually, because I was in Halifax. Like, he lives in Halifax, and I was there for a couple days to film like some YouTube videos, and he was like, oh, after my shift, like, we'll go right to breakfast and then I can go to bed. And I was like, sure, like an extra hour. But then he's like, oh, I'm gonna go sleep for an hour. And I was like, oh, I've been there. Like, you're not gonna want to do anything after that. So he goes and sleeps on the couch, but every hour he'd fell asleep right away, and then every hour he'd wake up and he'd like look up, and then he'd go right back to sleep. And I don't know if he remembered waking up at those times. And then it was like 11:30, and I was like, you still want to go for breakfast? Like, it's lunch now. And then he's like, I'm just going to go to bed. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought.
But those first 3 hours or whatever, those weren't a good sleep, were they?
No.
He should have just gone to bed.
He should have just went straight to bed, yeah. Oh, well. He's crazy.
So you're going to get him an eye mask, some really good earplugs. You could get him a little day sleep kit, a little fan, and the white noise. Actually, there's another tip. The white noise does help with sleeping during the day, because it tends to cut out all those like sharp noises, like somebody walking up the hall or shutting the door. The white noise can stop that and keep your brain asleep.
Smart.
Yeah.
I sleep with like a little sun lamp.
Yes.
So my alarm's at 6:30 every morning, but at 6 it will turn on, and it's very dim, and it will slowly but usually I wake up right at 6 and it will be the dimmest. So that's how sensitive your eyes are. Like, you just wake up and I look at the clock and it says like 6:01 or something.
You're exactly right. So that has already started waking you up. Those are a great tool for waking you up.
Because it like mimics the sun, and especially in like the winter when the sun's not up till 7:30 or something before time change. It's just, I don't know, I'll be up and it's fully bright at 6:30. So, and
that's a treatment actually for seasonal affective disorder, which is a type of depression. So when some people are really sensitive to the decreased number of hours of daylight we get, what their doctors suggest is getting one of these lights and using it, even if they're watching TV or reading or something in the darker hours. Morning is the best time to turn that on and start to use it as if it's kind of a fake sun for them, so they get those hours in, and it helps their seasonal affective disorder.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, and then at like 10-ish, 10:30, it will like dim, and then it'll turn off.
Good.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
You're already doing all kinds of great things.
I'm trying.
You're halfway there.
Yeah, I try to do a little bit of everything, but you
That's
can't do all you want to do.
No,
But,
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the podcast.
Mitchell, thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. It was awesome.
It's my pleasure.
Everybody, you can check out KV or Sussex Sleep Clinic. And I don't know if I should mention. Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right, everybody. Go visit KV or Sussex Sleep Clinic if you want to get a free analysis on your sleep and just get more information on your bodily health. I don't know if that camera's looking at me or not. Anyways, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mitchell.
No problem.